playoffs in the round of eight, but also a huge opportunity for us to move the championship to Homestead-Miami Speedway and then also kick off a rotation as well. So looking forward to having the news out to the world and talking with you guys about it today.
Well, thanks, Ben. We'll open it up for media questions. If you have a question, please click the raise your hand button. And when I call your name, please unmute yourself and share your name and affiliation before asking your question. Okay, so we'll open it up. We will start with Dustin Long.
Thanks. Hey, Ben, obviously NASCAR has gone through a lot of changes throughout the year. It's always been evolving, but certainly I'd say in the last decade or so, we've seen a lot more changes. And I'm just curious from your perspective, as somebody who's making these decisions on the changes that have taken place in the past and even today's announcement, and will make the decisions, be involved in the decision making in the future. What's kind of the guiding principle to making some of these decisions and moving forward, other than it's better for the sport? I'm sure there's more that goes into it than something as simple as that.
Yeah, it's a handful of considerations that we take a look at, especially as we think about moving a championship. I'd say first and foremost, it's fan feedback, and fans ranked Homestead-Miami Speedway as number one on the list of where they would like to see a championship in the future. And from what you guys may have seen and some of the fan sentiment so far, it leans very positive, which is great to see. So we listen to our fans, all of our partners, so broadcast partners, our teams, our drivers have input into where they'd like to see the championship in the future. So a lot of industry stakeholders that we'll collaborate with. And then I'd say on top of that, as you think about a championship race, ideally a warm weather kind of climate location. You can't race everywhere in the world, especially in early November. So there's a handful of venues and properties that we tend to gravitate towards. Thirdly, you want to make sure it's marketed and promoted the right way. Fourthly, Phoenix is a great example of this. I mean, you guys saw the over kind of $100 million project that we put into the reimagine of Phoenix Raceway. Homestead isn't a Phoenix Raceway, and it probably won't be to that level when we come for the championship next year. But we are going to be putting some capital in that facility to make sure it is a championship caliber property when we show up to it next year. And then overall racing product. And, I think this is another part of the discussion that we've had. We've been at Phoenix for a number of years, and you guys have seen we've made some changes to the playoffs. We haven't made wholesale changes, but a few kind of minor changes to the playoffs to keep that level of unpredictability and parity through it. So, things like moving Talladega, as an example, to the round of eight this year was kind of a storyline and is going to challenge the teams and drivers in a new and unexpected way. And we have a lot of confidence when we go to Homestead-Miami Speedway is going to deliver from a racing product perspective. It's also going to create a good amount of unpredictability for many of our fans that come to that race or tune in on TV. Just going to a different championship venue and having it on the line. So we're excited to see all that. A lot of collaboration internally, a lot of collaboration with a lot of our partners. And we've been sitting on this one for a while, so I'm glad that we're able to finally press the button on it and send it out to the world.
And also, a quick question is, what are those projects that you're looking at, or the improvements you're looking at making for Homestead, maybe if not ready for next year, but certainly in the next few years, to make it a championship quality venue as part of this rotation?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest thing we really focus on is a lot of the surveys that we have post race from our fans of, hey, what's working and where are some of our challenges. So we have a long menu list. It's several pages long of things that we'd like to do at Homestead. To your point, I don't think we're gonna be able to check everything off of the list prior to November of 26. But there are a number of things that we could do. Talk about ingress, egress. Paint on the walls is a huge part of it. A lot of our hospitality offerings, audio, the infield experience for our fans. So, a lot of things that we have on the list right now. We're working through exactly what that's going to look like. But I think as we get into the fall of this year and spring of next year, we'll start to see a lot of those things in motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to John Newby.
Thank you. John Newby, Savage Ventures. So, Ben, way back in February, Steve O'Donnell said that part of this rotation process would involve, finding places that could have that championship atmosphere. And I was curious, how much of a role did that play in keeping Phoenix on the schedule? Because obviously that city goes all out. every time that NASCAR heads there?
Yeah, it's a good question, and Phoenix is a great case study of it, right? It's a beautiful track, it's a beautiful facility, and it's a great market that really embraces us. And I think we do a good job of doing a number of activations and events in and around the market in the Phoenix area. So it is a championship caliber market, it's championship caliber city, and we'll be bringing the championship back to Phoenix sometime in the future. And Miami and Homestead is the same way. So, we want to find ways to partner up with a city, to partner up with a county, and not just have this be 2 or 3 days at the racetrack, but really turn this into, more of a longer weekend long event where we have a number of activations in and around the city and really paint the town, so to speak, to make sure that anyone that is in Miami that weekend knows that NASCAR is in town with their championship.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
It will go to Greg Engel.
Hey Ben, congrats on this. Greg Engel with Forbes. This is huge. It's a big deal, and we know obviously Phoenix is going to get in the rotation. And you got Homestead, and you kind of mentioned you touched on the requirements that you want for other tracks in the rotation. Do we expect a list sort of where we say, okay, we're going to choose the championship between these certain amount of tracks, and giving those cities an opportunity to vie for it, kind of like they do the Super Bowl now, where you can talk them into to come in because it's a huge impact on whatever city you go to. Will we see a list like that, or is it going to kind of remain quote unquote secret until the schedule's announced?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and it remains to be seen. We have a group that's been working on our longer term strategy of the championship locations for quite a while now, and we have discussed all sorts of variations of options. And to your point, the economic impact, and I think the story that we're able to tell, not only at the track, but a lot of the community involvement that we're able to create at Phoenix and that we're going to see at Homestead-Miami Speedway is a big part of this as well. So we want to make sure, and we say this all the time as it relates to the schedule, we want to make sure we're in the right markets at the right time and we're doing it with the right partners and right stakeholders. So, we're going to be very strategic and thoughtful about this process, about the markets and tracks that we either have conversations with or potentially, asked to see proposals from. So, we'll have more to share on that, I would say, in the coming months and later this summer.
Thanks again, pal. Congrats.
Thank you.
It will go to Davey Siegel.
Hey Ben, thanks for the time today. We appreciate it. So you mentioned all the factors that go into hosting a championship weekend, including but not limited to the climate, the market, the product on track, the infrastructure at that racetrack. Might be addressing an elephant in the room, but Vegas has all that. It's obviously not a NASCAR-owned track. What's the thought process from NASCAR's perspective in including that racetrack in the future conversations to host this championship weekend, being that it's not a NASCAR facility?
I think anything is on the table at this point, to be honest, whether it's NASCAR property or elsewhere. And I think the great part about it is we have a good relationship with Speedway Motorsports, and they have many prominent events in the playoffs, cutoff races at the Charlotte Roval and Bristol, and a handful of others. So, nothing to report today on exactly where we would be considering or where those properties might be, but I think all cards are on the table at this point.
Thank you.
And quick reminder, if you've got a question, please click the raise your hand button and we'll call on you. We'll go to Matt Weaver next.
Yeah, thanks for the time today, Ben. Davey had asked my primary question, but I did have a second one for you as well. You talk about the championship race or the championship race rotation, but the form that's going to take is still to be decided. You guys have that, championship playoff committee that's meeting periodically. Have you guys internally at NASCAR set a deadline for when you want that group to be done with its work and when the championship format could be announced alongside the race next year?
Yeah, we don't have a firm deadline per se, but I'd say at some point in the next few months, I think we'll have more to be able to share on what that looks like. And I would say it's been a very collaborative process. Tim Clark and the team have have led it. And we had a great meeting in Daytona with many stakeholders across the entire industry, whether it's teams, drivers, broadcast partners, people that are looking at data from what our fans are saying. So it was a really collaborative process. We've taken a few steps, since then. I know there's going to be many more meetings on it. So, again, nothing to report today, but I would assume sometime this year we'll have more to share.
10-4. Thanks, Ben.
Ben, we've got a question from Bob Pockris who sent it in the chat. In the years that Homestead or any other track that has one Cup day that is part of the rotation, would you expect their race to still be part of the playoffs, or could Homestead be November next year and then regular season in 2027?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bob, and thanks for it. So what we've talked about is trying, and I think this kind of leads to the date move in Phoenix a little bit, of trying to keep it in a strong position in the playoffs, but then also have a good amount of date equity that's tied to that weekend as well. So a lot of our fans in the Phoenix area, they're accustomed to the second Phoenix date falling somewhere in the October to November timeframe. And I think it's going to be important for us that if it's a non-championship venue, but it is in the rotation for that season, that we try to have as much data equity as we can. So we're really going to be focused on that. We're not going to be able to deliver it every year, but ideally, if it is a championship venue, but not the championship that year, we'll have it somewhere in the playoffs.
Perfect. We'll go to Darren with WESH.
Hey, Ben, Darren Stoltzfus from West 2 in Orlando. When you're talking about the venues and what fits, obviously the Daytona International Speedway kind of fits those things too. But I hate doing two-part questions, but does Daytona qualify with the style of racing and everything like that? Or is that a no-no? And then assuming if it is a potentially championship spot, how untouchable is the Daytona 500 in its current spot, Super Bowl opening race?
I did forget to mention that, and it's a good call out. So that was another variable that we discussed is what's on the table and what's off the table for a championship location. And you know, never say never, but I think we've unanimously agreed that it needs to look and feel like what we would expect traditional NASCAR racing to look and feel like. So short tracks, intermediate tracks, mile tracks are all on the board. Super speedways, I think we all feel like right now we wouldn't consider that as a championship venue. Not that, Daytona isn't a championship caliber venue. It is for sure. It checks every single box, except that box. And I think that's a little bit of a challenge just because, there are a lot of storylines that come out of those events. And we want to make sure that, when we go to Homestead, Miami or Phoenix or wherever it might be in the future, that there is a lot of strategy and that a lot of our championship drivers are also, contending for the victory at the end of that race. So we've talked about that. We've talked about road courses as well. Again, never say never, but road courses are probably lower on the list as we think about championship venues. So we're really going to hone in on short tracks, and I would say mile and a half for now.
Awesome. And then just following up all the changes that have come to the schedule, how untouchable do you think the 500 in its current spot is as the opener to the season?
Yeah, we would like to continue to see it as our opener. I think we'll continue to have the clash prior to the 500. It's a great opportunity for us to build up some momentum and anticipation for our biggest event of the year, the Daytona 500, and the new season ahead. So we'll continue to keep it in that spot. We ran a survey a couple of years ago, and it was over 95% of our fan base wants to see their first points race be the Daytona 500. So that was a statistic that was strong enough for us to say, we're not even going to explore that for now. So, we'll continue to have the exhibition race prior to it, and then, plan to have Daytona 500 as a first points race.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, we'll go to Pat Jaggers next.
Hey, Ben, appreciate your time today. You mentioned getting feedback from the drivers on teams on where they would like the championship to be. In regard to having it at Homestead, what was some of that feedback and to why for those that you did speak to?
Uh, I would say from the conversations that we had, a lot of it had to do with the racing product. Homestead has put on some of the most phenomenal finishes, especially when we had the championship there. But even since then, and we've crowned so many legends and Hall of Famers over the past 15 years when we did have the championship at Homestead Miami Speedway. So competition is a part of it, variability and I think diversity in where you're crowning the champion was another consideration. And then the third part is being in a big market where they feel like either the teams or partners or drivers can activate as well. So, Phoenix is great at that, and they're great at hosting and hospitality, and being able to have events in Avondale or Scottsdale or Phoenix area. And the great part about Miami is whether it's Homestead, Miami, north of that, or anywhere in between, there are so many areas that we can have a lot of activations and really bring a lot of our partners to a city that they would be proud to call a championship location. So I'd say those are probably the three biggest considerations that they had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Chris Collum.
Hey Ben, Chris Gollin with MotorStardom.com. Thank you for coming on here and talking about the news. So you were talking about the importance that the climate of the area has for whether a venue would be the championship race. And I'm curious, does that mean that certain tracks that fit the criteria of being the type of track that you were talking about, the mile and a half and the short track, but maybe are a little further north, like a Michigan or a Loudon, are those non-starters for hosting a championship weekend, or is that something that could be on the table if there were a way to make that work?
I don't think anything is a non-starter per se at this point. We do want to make sure that we're trying to avoid, severe weather disruptions on the event weekend. So, if it is as far north as a New Hampshire or a Michigan, as an example, we're going to look at over 30 years of past weather history on that date and that weekend to make sure that we're limiting our risks because there are a lot of fans that will come and camp out for that entire weekend, a lot of fans that will drive to see the race, and then many fans that will tune in on TV as well. And, if we have snow on the ground or it's, below freezing temperature, and fans don't want to come out, for a weekend to a championship venue, that's a bit of an issue. So, we're going to, be thoughtful about that. I don't think it rules out any venues or tracks per se, but it is part of our consideration set.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
It will go to Dustin Long.
Yeah, Ben, in terms of the rotation and how how far advanced do you want to get? Is it the hope that at some point you're announcing 27, 28, and 29 at the same time, or is it 1 year at a time and do it ahead of the schedule and make it its own thing, kind of like what the NFL does with all its little special different games and stuff like that?
Yeah, we would prefer to, I would say, two parts to this. So we prefer to announce it sooner and then also have it be annual and as a separate, kind of standalone announcement as well. So, our goal is to move up the announcement of the 2026 schedule for this year. I think our goal is also to move up the announcement of where the championship location is going to be for 2027 and have its own moment in the spotlight and in the sun as Homestead Miami does today. And I think that gives us the ability, there's a lot of content, a lot of storylines that are coming out today about the championship race moving down to Homestead Miami Speedway. There are going to be a lot of other moments that we're going to have from now until November of 26 of the logo unveil, the entertainment, everything else that's going to happen and transpire around that weekend, and really reimagining what the championship event looks like at Homestead Miami Speedway. So want to move up the announcement of the championship location, still have it as a standalone announcement. And then I think also to answer your question is have this be annually instead of announcing 2 or 3 or 4 at once.
And also, just since we got a chance to talk to you, is the status of the Clash. And last time we left you, and obviously very happy with Bowman Gray. A lot of talk about international now that we're a few months past and getting, I know things will happen quickly. Is international still something that could be on table for the Clash, or have you narrowed it down and it's going to have to remain in the United States for next year?
Yeah, it's I think as far as next year goes, more than likely it will stay domestic here in the United States. I wouldn't rule out international in the future though. We have talked a lot about it being prior to the season, in the off season, an exhibition race. It's a great opportunity for us to bring NASCAR racing to other parts of the world. And I think it's going to be something that we continue to consider. But at least for now, we'll more than likely keep it domestic.
Thank you.
It will go to Claire B. Lang.
Thank you. Quick question. How much weight do you put on the teams? And I include the drivers in the teams. We've heard a lot from drivers about what they prefer competition wise, right? How much weight, because you started out with the fans, do you put on the teams part of it and what they would like? And thanks a lot for today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claire. We do put a good amount of weight on it. And we have a small committee of folks from the team side that we've had a couple of conversations with about the championship location, not only venues that they would consider, but what are you looking for as you think about a championship market and a championship caliber facility? So, they all have different parameters that they're looking for, whether you're a big team, a middle team, a small team, a championship contender, a non-championship contender. Everyone has their own wants and wishes, which is great. We're not going to be able to appease to everyone, but Homestead does check a lot of those boxes. So teams and drivers certainly have a large voice, and I think for us, it's a matter of sitting down and disseminating all those voices. What does it look like strategically? What's it look like financially? What are we hearing from our industry stakeholders? And then making the best decision that we believe that will set up the sport for the future.
And then real quick, like the fans, are they weighted on whether they think their driver is good at Homestead and could win a championship there, as the teams are too? I know the teams and drivers might be weighted a little, and you got to take that into consideration.
It's a good question. So we don't ask the fans who their favorite driver are. It's a very generic, where would you like to see the championship race in the future? And Homestead Miami's #1. So we don't double click into any other data sets of their favorite team or favorite driver after that.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
And we'll go one final question with Stephen Smith.
Hi, Ben. Stephen Cole Smith with Haggerty.com. Quick question, two quick questions. One, to what extent did you talk to the broadcast partners about this? Or do they have favorites, or do they have really much input in this decision?
They do. Yeah, they have another very strong voice as well. And we had quite a few conversations with NBC about where they would like to see the championship venue in the future. So, they're supportive of this move. They've seen the championship there in the past. So, they certainly have a good, strong voice, and it was great to have them on board through this process.
Yeah. Second question. A lot of us down here have followed your driving career from Orlando Speed World up to the big tracks. And I was just curious if you ever feel like getting back behind the wheel, and if so, what are you going to do about it?
Well, that's my favorite question of the day. No, I love talking about championship. No, I had the opportunity to jump in a super late model a year and a half ago for a test session at New Smyrna Speedway. So that was the first time since Homestead-Miami of 2017 that I had been in a car. So I haven't raced since, but I did one test session, and I told them that I'm just going to step away from it for now because I could easily see myself getting back into it.
I heard. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Well, Ben, thanks for the time today, and thanks for all the media for their many questions on the 2026 NASCAR Championship weekend. We'll next be joined by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 for Team Penske, a three-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, and he will join us at 12:45 at this same link. And I will toss it. And yeah, well, Ben, thanks again. And Amanda Ellis will be here to be with everyone for Joey Logano.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the time today.
Thanks.
All right, to everyone on the call, thank you so much for joining. We will go ahead and close out this link for the time being. We have about 15 minutes before Joey will join us. That way we can download the audio and video from Ben, and then we'll open it back up, bring you guys back in, and we'll have Joey here, like Brent mentioned, around 12:45. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you.